Anime fans love kind protagonists. Tanjiro, Naruto, Deku, Vash, Gon, even Thorfinn after all the violence. These are the characters people point to when they talk about hope, empathy, and goodness in anime. But the more I think about it, the more I think kindness in anime is not always soft. Sometimes, kindness is terrifying. Not because these characters are secretly evil, not because they are pretending to be good, but because their kindness becomes the one thing they cannot afford to lose. And when a character builds their entire identity around staying kind, saving people, or refusing to become cruel, that kindness stops being simple. It becomes a burden, a weapon, a trap. And sometimes, the scariest anime heroes are not the ones who snap first. They are the ones who refuse to snap no matter what it costs them. The easy version of kindness is simple. A character sees someone suffering, and they help. But anime usually takes that further. It asks, what happens when kindness becomes the only thing holding a character together? What happens when a hero is not just kind because they are good, but because they are terrified of becoming anything else? That is where these characters get interesting. Because for a lot of anime heroes, kindness is not just a personality trait. It is proof. Proof that they are still human. Proof that their pain did not destroy them. Proof that the world did not successfully turn them into the thing that hurt them. And that is why kind anime heroes can feel so intense. They are not just trying to save other people, they are trying to save themselves from becoming someone they would hate. Tanjiro is probably the cleanest example of this. A lot of people talk about Demon Slayer like it is simple, and honestly, it is. But simple does not mean shallow. Tanjiro's entire story is built on a very direct emotional idea. He loses everything, and still refuses to let suffering make him cruel. That is the thing people miss. Tanjiro is not interesting because he is the most complicated protagonist in anime. He is interesting because his kindness feels impossible. He has every reason to become hateful. Every reason to see demons as nothing but monsters. Every reason to let grief turn into rage and stay there. But he does not. And that does not make him weak. It makes him harder to corrupt. That is why Tanjiro works so well. His kindness is not passive, it is active resistance. Every time he shows empathy, he is pushing back against the idea that pain has to reproduce itself. The world hurts him, and instead of becoming colder, he becomes more determined not to let anyone else suffer the same way. That is not softness, that is discipline. And in a story like Demon Slayer, where cruelty keeps spreading from person to person, Tanjiro's kindness becomes one of the most powerful forces in the show. But then you have Gon, and Gon is where this pattern gets scary in a different way. Because Gon starts as the kind of protagonist who feels pure, curious, loyal, honest, excited by the world. But Hunter x Hunter slowly reveals that Gon's innocence is not the same thing as morality. That is what makes him so uncomfortable. Gon can be kind, Gon can be loving, Gon can be incredibly loyal, but his kindness is tied very tightly to his own emotional world. When someone fits inside that world, Gon will protect him with everything he has. But when someone violates his sense of right and wrong, he can become terrifyingly extreme. That is why I think Gon was always scarier than Killua. Killua looks dangerous. He was trained to be an assassin. He knows he is damaged. But Gon does not see himself that way. He does not think of himself as cruel. He does not think of himself as selfish. He just follows his feelings with complete conviction. And when those feelings are loving, that can be beautiful. But when those feelings become grief, rage, or obsession, that same conviction becomes horrifying. Gon is scary because he shows the darker side of pure-hearted heroes. Sometimes innocence does not stop someone from becoming dangerous. Sometimes it makes them more dangerous because they believe completely in what they feel. Naruto and Deku are different, but they share one painful thing. Both of them connect their worth to what they can give other people. Naruto's dream was never really about becoming Hokage. Not at the deepest level. The title mattered because it represented something he never had. Acknowledgement. He wanted to be seen. He wanted to matter. He wanted the same village that treated him like a problem to finally say, "You belong here." So Naruto's kindness is powerful because it comes from loneliness. He knows what it feels like to be abandoned, so he keeps reaching for people who are alone, angry, or broken. But that also means his kindness is not casual. It is personal. Saving people becomes part of how Naruto proves that his pain meant something. Deku has a different version of that same issue. Deku wants to save people so badly that his kindness can become self-erasure. He will break his body, ignore his limits, carry burdens alone, convince himself that if he is useful enough, then he is doing what a hero should do. And that is why kind heroes can be scary, because sometimes they are not just helping, they are disappearing into the idea of helping. Naruto wants to be acknowledged, Deku wants to be worthy. Both of those desires can make kindness beautiful, but also dangerous. Because when your self-worth depends on saving everyone, failure does not just hurt. It feels like proof that you were never enough. Then there's Vash. And Vash might be the clearest example of kindness as punishment. Because Vash is not scary because he is cruel. He is scary because he refuses to become cruel, even when cruelty would make his life easier. That is the tragedy of his character. Vash's mercy is inspiring, but it isn't clean. It costs him constantly. Every person he refuses to kill becomes another consequence he has to live with. Every act of mercy creates another risk. Every time the world gives him a reason to abandon his values, he has to choose them again. And that's exhausting. That is why Vash's kindness feels heavier than simple goodness. He is not just choosing mercy because he thinks it is nice. He is choosing mercy because if he gives up on it, something inside him breaks permanently. That is what makes him terrifying. Not that he might snap, but that he might keep suffering forever just to avoid becoming the kind of person that the world keeps trying to turn him into. Vash shows us that sometimes the kindest heroes are not the ones who suffer less. They are the ones who volunteer to carry more. And they do it because the alternative will cost them their soul. Thorfinn is important because he shows a different version of this pattern. For a lot of these characters, kindness is something they are trying to protect. For Thorfinn, kindness is something he has to rebuild. He does not start as the gentle hero who refuses violence. He starts as someone consumed by it. Revenge gives his life structure. Violence gives him purpose. Hatred gives him a reason to keep moving. But once that purpose is gone, he has to face the emptiness underneath. And that is what makes his transformation so powerful. When Thorfinn chooses peace, it does not feel naive. It feels earned. He knows exactly what violence can do. He knows the satisfaction it promises. He knows the emptiness it leaves behind. So when he says he has no enemies, that is not a cute moral slogan. It is a rejection of the entire identity that once kept him alive. That is why kindness after violence can feel so powerful in anime. Because it is not innocence, it is recovery. Thorfinn is not kind because he has never seen cruelty. He is kind because he has seen what cruelty turns people into, and he refuses to keep feeding it. This is why anime does kindness so well. It does not always treat kindness as politeness. It treats kindness as action, a choice, a cost, a line a character keeps drawing even when everything around them says crossing it would be easier. That is what connects Tanjiro, Gon, Naruto, Deku, Vash, and Thorfinn. Their kindness is not all the same. For Tanjiro, kindness is resistance. For Gon, kindness reveals its limits. For Naruto and Deku, kindness gets tangled with self-worth. For Vash, kindness becomes punishment. For Thorfinn, kindness is recovery. But all of them show the same thing. Being kind in anime is rarely simple. Sometimes it means fighting the world, sometimes it means fighting yourself, and sometimes it means surviving the exact pain that should have turned you cruel. That is why these characters stay with people. Not because they are nice, because their kindness is tested, and the test is what makes it meaningful. So when I say anime's kindest heroes are actually the scariest, I do not mean they are secretly villains. I mean their goodness is not fragile. It survives things that should destroy it, and that is what makes it scary. Because cruelty is easy to understand. A character gets hurt, and they become worse. But kindness after loss, after violence, after rejection, after trauma, that is harder. That takes more strength. And maybe that is why these heroes feel so powerful. They are not scary because they never break. They are scary because even when they do break, some part of them still chooses not to become cruel. And in anime, that might be the hardest kind of strength there is. If you like anime analysis that looks under the surface, subscribe to ReservedOtaku, and I'll see you in the next one.